It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good Saturday morning. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thank you for joining me this morning. I know that it's a bit early on the weekend, but appreciate you being on the air with me so that I can discuss all things real estate here with you. If this is your first time tuning in, I am your host, Brian Beatty. I'm a local real estate agent here in our market, have been for the past 8 years, and have been in the top 1% of agents in our market for the past 5 years. And on this show, I take national, regional, and local news and apply that to our specific markets so that when it comes time for you to buy or sell a home, you have the information and the mind frame and the time frame that you need to make informed real estate decisions. So again, appreciate you tuning in this morning. If you'd like to reach out to me, the best way to do that is probably to just go to my website. My website is www.listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can search the MLS. You can take a look at my current listings, my sold listings, read some testimonials from past clients. And if you're interested in selling your home, then you can click on the Sellers tab and take a look at, really, it's a preview of my marketing plan and learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. Or if you'd like, you can just give me a call, 843-345-1273. I also accept texts. It's on that number. So reach out to me if you have a specific question or if there's anything I say during the show that you'd like more information on as it relates to you and your situation, all of which is done in confidence. We do not, of course, share your information, and please do feel free to contact me if you do have any questions. So I want to give you an idea of what I'd like to talk about this week on this show. Last week was a live show and had some great calls from some different folks interested in buying and selling. We talked about quite a bit. We talked about just where we are as a market right now, and in order to determine where we're going, I talked about where we've been over the past several years. I actually went all the way back to 1989 so that we could establish some historical trends and then tie that information into our market right now, because it has been volatile, to say the least, over the past 7 years, 8 years. So we talked about that. Again, took some good calls. I'm going to take some time this show to get to some of the things that I didn't get to last show. But I also want to talk about some mistakes to avoid when putting your property on the market right now. We're kind of at that point in time in our market where things really start heating up. Buyers start contacting us, discussing their real estate needs. Sellers contact us saying, hey, Brian, we're thinking about putting our home on the market. Should we do it now or 2 months from now? What's the timing look like? So I want to talk about some mistakes to avoid. And then I also want to talk about what's happening right now in our market, which happens every time our market really starts to pick up steam, which is that new agents get into the business, or existing agents that have kind of been doing this part-time and struggling are going to do what they need to do, say what they need to say to get your listing. So I want to talk about why real estate agents take overpriced listings. I want to give you that information so you understand what's going on, so that in the event you have an interest in selling your house, you can kind of pick up on little cues that might lead you to believe they might not be telling you the truth. And unfortunately, that happens in our industry. From there, I want to talk about how to set the right price for your house. I want to talk about price reductions. I want to kind of debunk the myth that price reductions are synonymous with a fire sale. They are not. Every situation is different. So when we price a home, it's on a case-by-case basis, and it's in line with what that seller needs and what their goals are. And then if we have some time, I want to talk about, I want to switch gears, and I want to talk about the lease-to-purchase market and the rent-to-own market, how that's different, how it's looking right now, because I think we focus a lot on sellers on this show, and I represent a lot of sellers. But I also want to talk about the buyers that might not be able to buy right now, but want to take advantage of today's pricing and today's interest rates, so on and so forth. So I want to talk about that toward the end. So right now, I want to get into the 5 mistakes sellers should avoid in today's market when listing their home, negotiating contracts, so on and so forth. Again, if you'd like to reach out to me, I'm happy to provide you with this report. Just go to my website, www.listingsincharleston.com. But here we go. The 5 mistakes sellers should avoid in today's market. I came up with this list as a way of just kind of helping you understand what's going on in our market right now. First thing that I'm seeing a lot of is sellers not taking the first buyer's offer seriously. So what happens is, we list the home, we discuss a pricing strategy, we feel comfortable and confident that based on our research and based on our market's trends, this is an appropriate price. It doesn't have to be right on point, and I think buyers know that. Most of the time, sellers don't list their home for exactly market value. They want to put in a little cushion there for negotiations. That's to be expected. Just like buyers don't usually go ahead and just offer you full price for the house. But I have seen a few instances over the past few months where I'll list a home, the marketing does its job, we get a ton of people into the house, we get an offer quickly, and the seller chooses to hold off for a better offer. And unfortunately, what happens in those instances, sometimes, not all the time, but I would say more often than not, the next offer that comes in isn't quite as good. And as time progresses and as your listing stays on the market and the days on market increase, buyers are going to be less likely to offer you the same price, because at some point in time, here's what happens. When you first list your home, you are marketing to 2 groups of people. Group number 1 are the people that are looking right now. They are ready, willing, and able buyers. They just haven't found what they're looking for yet. The second group are the people that choose to enter the market every day on a situational basis. So it might be that, they just got their job promotion, now they can afford a home, or they're moving to the area, or whatever the case might be. The second group of people are the people that choose to enter the market on any given day. So 2 groups of people there. At some point in time, we exhaust group number 1. The people that are looking right now that just haven't found what they're looking for yet, they're going to come and they're going to make a decision as to whether or not they're interested in your home at that price. And if they're not, they move on and they buy something else. So that's why showings start to slow down after you've been on the market for the average is about 60 days. It depends on the price range and the market you're in, of course, but average is about 60 days. So I see that happening a lot right now. And when you sit down with your real estate agent or you sit down with me, we go through a very comprehensive look at the market, the trends in the market, and what we can expect to sell your home for based on that information. So we need to kind of, have an understanding going in that if we can generate an offer within this price range, that should be good enough to accept. So that's number 1. Number 2 is offering buyer credits for work that you'd rather not do. So think about this for a second. When you list your home for sale, do your back steps have dry rot? Do you know of a leaky faucet, or are there windows that have some rot on them? Does your HVAC sometimes act up? If you're not willing to invest the time and money to fix those things, that's fine. Just know that the buyer is they are going to point those issues out. They're going to get a home inspection. They're going to, so it's going to go one of 2 ways. They're either going to notice it up front and use that in negotiations against you as the seller, or use that to your benefit if you're a buyer, or they're going to catch it in the home inspection, and more than likely they're going to, flag it and ask that you repair it at some point throughout that process. So understand that just like you, the seller might be busy, the buyer too does not necessarily want to make repairs. They might want to make cosmetic updates. They might be excited about renovating a kitchen or a bathroom, or something as simple as painting it the colors that, identify with them. But some of the home improvement things or the home repair things that you're going to put off are more than likely going to be caught by that buyer. So probably not a very good chance in sneaking that by. Number 3, making highly personal changes to your home. I had a guy that wanted to put a really shiny finish on his garage floor. He wanted to seal his cement, have it be a high gloss finish, really do up his garage right before selling it. And I told him, frankly, that's not the best use of your money. Let's tackle some of the smaller things that we need to do inside the house to make it a little more sellable. I don't think the garage is where we need to allocate our money right now. So moving on, again, number 3 was making highly personal changes to your home. Just be smart about the renovations you choose to do and make sure that it's in line with your neighborhood. Number 4, making your home difficult to show. I have a very extensive list, and feel free to contact me. I'll send it right over to you. But I have a very extensive list on what to do prior to listing your home, what to do when having people come through. It's just a long checklist of things that you might not have thought of that can create a more positive experience for the buyer when they pull up to the drive-in than when they walk through your home. And then number 5 is overpricing your home, which leads me to the segment that we're going to talk about next, which is why agents would take an overpriced listing. So stick with me. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I will be right back.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks again for joining me this morning. If you're just tuning in, best way to reach me if there's anything that I talk about on this program that you'd like more information on is to go to my website, www.listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can search the MLS. You can take a look at my current listing inventory, listings that I've sold. You can read some testimonials from past clients. And of course, if you're considering selling your home, you can click on the Sellers tab and get a preview of my marketing plan, as well as learn a little bit more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. So again, that website is www.listingsincharleston.com, or you can call or text me at 843-345-1273. So before we went to the break, our first segment, I talked about the 5 mistakes to avoid in this market right now when putting your home up for sale. And again, what I'm seeing right now is we're at a point in time in our market where things are just about to start heating up. And here's what happens. April and May, more listings hit the market, more buyers hit the market. So if you're considering selling your home, just know that buyers are looking right now. They're doing their research right now, and they are most likely able to purchase right now. They're just waiting for the inventory to kind of start to stack up. So if you're considering selling your home, it might not be a bad idea to consider putting it on the market now, beat the competition to the market, and take advantage of the buyers that are kind of sidelined while waiting for that inventory. So again, if you'd like more information on selling your home, I'm a top 1% agent in our market, have been for the past 5 years here in Charleston, and I can be reached at 843-345-1273 or going to my website, listingsincharleston.com. So I wanted to talk about something that I think you need information on, and that is why a real estate agent would take an overpriced listing. And we see this every time our market starts to improve, especially around this time of year. So I think it's very appropriate that we talk about it. And what's happening is these agents who continually write ridiculously priced listings, they start to gain some questionable reputation. It kind of hurts our industry as new agents hit the market and get their license and they want to start building their listing inventory. I've heard them say it. They'll do anything for a listing. So it doesn't matter what price they take it for. They just want the listing so that they can, first and foremost, say they have the listing, but more importantly, get the marketing that comes from it. So let me kind of step into this world for a second and help you understand that. Again, if you want to contact me about this, if you feel that you've been kind of led astray from the market, or you've had a property that's been listed, it came off the market, and you'd like to interview a top agent, give me a call, 843-345-1273, and we'll walk through the entire process together. So here we go. As a seller interviews each agent, often the estimate of value starts to creep upward. And I see this time and time again. It's if I'm the first person and I give my fair opinion of market value, by the time the third or fourth agent gets there, that value has crept up 10, 15, sometimes 20%. And all they're doing is bidding for the listing. They're telling the seller what the seller wants to hear with regard to price. And the concern is that they might not have the information to justify that value. So very simply, as a seller, you need to determine whether or not that agent has unrealistic expectations based on the information they provide. So if they don't have the facts to back it up, the more than likely scenario is that they are just bidding for your listing. And why would they do that? So that's the question that I want to answer, and it's multifaceted. So first and foremost, when an agent has a listing, they see that as potentially free advertising. It depends on whether or not there are any upfront costs for them to market your property for sale. But the agent sees it as free advertising. Every for sale sign advertises the agent's company, their phone number, their name. If they have a picture on their yard sign, then it's promoting them. And here's what happens from it. They get sign calls. Buyers drive around. They call the sign. That is a lead for that agent. Obviously, the more leads, the better. The more leads you have, the more real estate you can sell. The more listings you have, the more real estate you can sell. So it would make sense from an agent's perspective to take an overpriced listing because, hey, I might not sell it, but at least I'll get a bunch of leads from it. Second thing that they likely will do or suggest is a lot of open houses. And I feel very passionately about open houses because I have done over 100, and I have never sold a house from an open house. I really, truly believe that open houses are a very old school approach to selling real estate. To think that a buyer that is ready, willing, and able to buy a home that's been pre-approved for a mortgage or has cash is going to just stumble upon a property while driving around that weekend on the way to or from a grocery store to purchase a home, to me, just it doesn't make sense because the way that people search for real estate these days has totally changed. Maybe 15 years ago, open houses were an effective approach to selling real estate, but not today. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to put the sign in the yard. They're going to get the calls from it. They're going to encourage you to do open houses so that they can sit in the house, let buyers come in. Doesn't matter whether or not the listing is priced to sell because the people that come in more than likely are going to be looking for something different than what you have. So they're going to go and they're going to sell them something else. Number 3, if they do any sort of online advertising or print advertising, of course, people contact us as listing agents for more information on the property. So there you go. There's lead source number 3 or number 4 is the online and the print marketing that agent might do to generate leads. So why would an agent take an overpriced listing? Hopefully that has become a little more clear to you. What they're doing is agreeing to your price. They're not giving you that potential pushback that you might need from an agent to say, hey, I understand that you've done X, Y, and Z to your home. And yes, it is upgraded, but this is what the market is telling me based on current listings under contract, and properties that have sold in your area in the past 6 months. This is the information that any agent or any buyer is going to look at to justify an offer on your home. So if an agent sits down with you and they say, well, I think we could sell it for X, or why don't we try X, and if it doesn't work, then we can come down. That's what they're doing. And so for me as a real estate agent, again, that's been in the top 1% of agents in our market for the past 5 years, there are listings that I walk away from, and I'll be just straightforward with you in that if the expectations are not in line with what the market will bear, then there's clearly a gap there between what they want and the reality that is the market. So we talk about that. We talk about what to expect. Here's, everything that sold. Here's how long it took them to sell. This was the average difference between list price and sales price. This home had granite countertops, yours did not. Or this one had an outdated bathroom. Your master bathroom is brand new and highly updated. We make individual adjustments, and we price it right. Now, I will say that we are in a seller's market, not a buyer's market. So as long as we're pretty close, as long as we're in the ballpark, we're going to get showings. And the marketing that I do produces a ton of activity. In fact, I was looking at it a few weeks ago, and in the past 12 months, I have generated over 250,000 clicks on my listings over the past 12 months. That's a crazy number to me. That's just very, very high, and it tells me that there are a lot of buyers out there, certainly more buyers than there are sellers, and that's what happens, of course, in a seller's market. So overpricing your listing, it might, what I will say is this. It might be the real estate agent's fault for not having the backbone to say, this is what the market is telling me. We can make a decision based on the facts. Or it might be the seller. It might be, hey, I am not going to list my home if we don't get X. And if there's an agent that needs that commission, or they really need a listing to try and generate some leads so that they can kickstart their business because they really don't have anything else going on, then they're likely going to agree to that. So just be aware that as agents are talking to you about the market and about your neighborhood and about your home, that they have the information to justify it. If the information isn't available, why do they feel that way? And common sense should prevail in those situations. So if you're just joining us, we've just talked about overpricing listings. Before that, we talked about some mistakes to avoid when putting your home on the market. Coming up next, I want to talk about how to sell property in this market in greater detail, and then I want to talk about lease to purchases. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA, and I will be right back.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. 1250 WTMA. Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Thank you for joining me this morning. This is our third segment. If you're just joining us, we've talked earlier today about some mistakes to avoid when putting your property on the market, since we're kind of at that point in time where things start to heat up. And then we talked about why real estate agents take overpriced listings. Why do that? What's the motivation to take an overpriced listing from a real estate agent's perspective? So I shared that with you. If you're just joining and you'd like that information, feel free to give me a call, 843-345-1273. You can also text me at that number, or just go to my website. That's probably an easier way of doing things. My website is www.listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, I'm excited to announce that starting next week, we will have all previous versions of this show dating back, I guess about a year now. So feel free to go to that website, listingsincharleston.com. You can also search the MLS, take a look at my current listing inventory, listings I have sold. And if you're considering selling your home, then please click on the Sellers tab, and you can take a look at a preview of my marketing plan. And you can also learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. So I want to talk now about setting the right price. We've talked a lot today about selling property in this market, and it's something I want to focus on because we're at that time in our market where listings start to hit the market, buyers start to get interested again. If you just look at the seasonally adjusted numbers, this is when we really start to kick off our market, although January and February have been great months. February, my gosh, it was way more busy than I thought it was going to be. So really encouraged by that. And if that's what's going on in February, I'm excited to see what happens in May. And I will tell you that before I get into this, last year we saw about a 12% increase in pricing in our market across the board. I don't know if it's going to be that high this year. And I've said for the past several months, the past 6 months, that a 12% or so increase in pricing year over year is not a sustainable growth pattern. Just like it was not sustainable for us to see the 10, 15, sometimes 20% decrease in pricing when our market was headed downward, 2008, that date range. So want to make you aware that, yes, we are in a seller's market and the inventory is low in many areas. Depends on where you are. Mount Pleasant is incredibly low, but if you compare it to Somerville, Somerville is kind of a balanced market right now because there's a lot of new construction in Somerville. The new home builders have caught up to that lack in supply and have filled that gap. And so it's a balanced market in Somerville. It's a fairly extreme seller's market in Mount Pleasant and some of the other areas in Charleston County. If you want to know what's going on in your specific county, area, neighborhood, just go to my website and I'll submit to you a neighborhood CMA, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Again, that website, listingsincharleston.com. So I want to talk now about setting the right price for your house. And I want to talk about some strategies first, but then I also want to talk about some things to avoid. So when you sit down and you conduct an interview with a real estate agent, they should have several things with them. They should have what's called a CMA, comparative market analysis. I go a step further and I do a BPO, and we can talk about that later. But a CMA is very simply a printout that shows everything that's for sale, under contract, sold, and expired or failed to sell in your area as it relates to your home over the past 6 months. And it gives you a snapshot of what's going on in your area. So if they bring that information, that's great. They've done kind of the basics of providing you with information on what your home is likely worth. That's the data that you need. So from there, you can very quickly tell the agents that are experienced in pricing and selling properties versus the agents that are not. And here's why I say that. If a real estate agent just looks at the CMA and says, well, homes are selling for about this price per square foot, that's probably where we need to be, and they don't go into the details of the situation, then they're kind of just taking the path of least resistance is what they're doing. They're assuming that all the homes that comprise that sold category or that under contract category or that active category, whatever it is they're using, are all the same. And that is never the case. No two homes are exactly alike. So if they're not going and looking at each individual property and making adjustments for condition, location, and upgrades, then you're kind of missing the mark. You're not being as specific as you need to be about the value of your house, because that's what an appraiser would do. And at the end of the day, the majority of buyers use a mortgage to buy a house. So you have to be able to justify the value of your home through real comps and through that sales comparison approach. So that's how you really need to look at pricing, but you also need to understand how long it's going to take you to sell. You do that through a CMA. And then you also need to understand what the average difference is between listing price and sales price. So if in your area it's 3%, but you want to overprice your home by, let's say, 10 or 15% to account for, air quotes, negotiating room, then you might be missing the mark. You're going to be priced too high. You might still get some showings, but buyers are you're going to perceive their offer as a low ball, when in fact it might actually be closer to fair market value. So some of the things to think about when pricing your home that might not necessarily affect the value would be some of the upgrades that you've made. And while many improvements are recognized by buyers as having value, it is rare that the improvements you make end up making you money. Actually, I read a report a few weeks ago from Remodeling Magazine, I think it was. It was the cost versus value report for 2013, and it tracked all of the home improvement, it tracked a large sum of home improvement projects all over the nation, but it also tracked 33 different home improvement projects in Charleston. And it actually showed us, here's the cost of the project, here's what it actually resulted in value after the project was completed. So if you want to copy that report, I still have it. I'm happy to share it with you. Just go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, send me a little message and I'll send you that report. So number one, making upgrades that might not necessarily affect the value of your home, especially if they're very personal upgrades like a pool or a sunroom or some funky carpet that you like. I don't know why, but over the past few weeks, I've seen some very strange carpeting choices that is just weird. But anyways, number two would be your need for money, whether it's you're moving to a higher price point or you're retiring and you need X from the sale, your need for money at closing based on what you owe really doesn't have anything to do with the value of the property. And I know that you know that as a seller. And if that's the reason for selling, so be it. That's a great motivation for selling, as long as we can get you that price. If you need $300,000, but we can only get you $250,000 from the sale, and that's based on realistic sales data, then we might have to wait for the market to come up to you, or we might have to readjust, your need. What else can kind of cause your price to be out of line? Lack of factual, comparable data. We see this a lot in the luxury market. I have a condo listed above Hyman Seafood. It's the penthouse. It's $873,000 for a 2-bedroom, 1,750 square foot property, and it is decked out. I mean, it is top of the line, everything. And it's right next to the Charleston Place Hotel, so it's in a perfect location if you want to be in downtown Charleston. But the problem is there really aren't any comps that are similar to it. It's a modern condo. It's a loft-style condo. We don't have very many of those in the Charleston area. Most of what we see is, coastal, shabby chic, or traditional Charleston. So it's a tough property to sell in that it's unique. There are very few comps that support the value, although I think the value is there, and the value is always in the eye of the beholder, right? So those are just a few things that can kind of throw off your selling price. What I want to do is I want to talk next about, and I want to circle back to this. I know I talked about this last program, but I want to talk about Zillow, the Zillow estimate, and what's going on right now in the online real estate marketing world that I just want to bring to your attention, kind of vent about a little bit, because I've had some situations happen recently where I just want to share those stories with you. So I'm going to talk about that next. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. That's lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. WTMA. Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thank you for joining me this morning. If you're just joining me, we've talked a lot this morning about working with sellers, selling your property in this market, what to expect, what not to expect, how to navigate it. We're at that point in our market where listings are going to start hitting the market. Buyers are sidelined due to a lack of inventory, and that's due in part to the fact that we're in a seller's market, but also due in part to the fact that this is just kind of a slow time of year. So buyers are out there. I know they're out there. We are getting a ton of contacts from buyers right now. Last month, we had over 300 people contact our team stating an interest in buying a home in the Charleston area. So if you're considering selling or you're considering buying, please contact me. I'd love the opportunity to speak with you about your situation and potentially earn your business. I have been in the top 1% of real estate agents in our market for the past 5 years in a row. And the way to contact me is to go to my website, www.listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can search the MLS. You can take a look at the listings I currently have, listings I've sold, read some testimonials from past clients. And if you're considering selling your home, then click on the Sellers tab. You'll see a little preview of my marketing plan, and you'll learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. I believe I also have my communication guarantee on there. So reach out to me about that if you're interested in buying or selling a house, or call me, 843-345-1273. I wanted to get into something that I wanted to talk about last weekend when I did my live show, and I just didn't have time, and that is websites like Zillow and Trulia.com and Realtor.com and Homes.com and so on and so forth. And I want to first say before I get into this that I market very heavily on these websites. I'm a market leader from the standpoint of putting my listings out there. My mantra for marketing is that anywhere someone is looking is where I want to be. I want my properties to look as quality and professional as possible. So again, if you go to my website, you'll see I pay for professional photography. My listings look good. www.listingsincharleston.com if you want to take a look at some of those. But here's what's happening. And I wanted to vent about this. I don't know if this has any interest to you at all, really, but I think that you should be aware of how this dynamic is changing and how it could potentially affect you, the seller or the buyer, by way of shared information in our industry. So what's happening is Zillow and other major websites are now of the opinion that they are more important than the real estate agent. And as businesses, when they look ahead at the opportunities they have in front of them based on the way that people search for real estate, those opportunities are vast. And there's only one problem, is that their opportunities exist because they rely on information that we as realtors provide them with. And when a lead generation business, which is what they are, disguises themselves as an information provider and steps on the backs of real estate agents to get that information to the consumer, well, of course, I have a problem with that. And I don't think agents are thinking about this. They're not thinking about the way the business is changing. So don't get me wrong. I want to be a leader in technology in my industry and in my market, but I have a problem when a company proactively tries to create challenge in an industry that can also hurt it. Change in an industry that can also hurt it. And so here's what I mean by that. What I don't want to have happen is a buyer or a seller come up to me and say, hey, Brian, I don't really need your services because I have Zillow or I have Trulia or whatever. I'm not picking on Zillow per se. And again, I do a lot of marketing on there. But what I don't want to have happen is someone come up to me and say, hey, Brian, I don't really need your service. I don't really think I'm going to pay you that much commission, which is, I just charge the standard commission 6%, no more than anybody else. And if you're working with me as a buyer, the seller pays my commission, so it doesn't cost you anything. But I don't want them to say, hey, I already have all the information, so sorry, but I don't really need your assistance. Well, I'm sorry, but frankly, you're wrong. And so what happens is websites like Zillow and Trulia, they have not created more buyers or sellers. They've just changed the way people go to find a home. And the fact of the matter is there is no statistical data available to show that websites sell homes faster or for more money. So if you need to find someone's phone number, do you go to 10 different websites to find it? No. You go to the phone book or you go to yellowpages.com. So for me as a realtor, should I need to input my listing into 10 separate MLS systems? No, I just need to put it into one MLS system, and then it feeds to all the other websites that aggregate and push that data. So what's happening is basically Zillow and Trulia and all these websites think that my personal information is theirs, that they have a right to that information. The more technology buyers have access to, they are as much distracted by it as they are helped by it. Things like Zillow's walk score, the Zillow estimate. I told you already that a few shows ago that the Zillow estimate can be as much as 30% off. How can you rely on that data if it's that far off? You're going to tell me that my home is either worth $700,000 or $1 million or $1.3 million? Sorry, that's a pretty big range. So how this affects you is the way that agents are marketing their properties, because it's expensive to market on these websites like Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com and so on and so forth. And when I sit down and I speak with the seller and I lay out my marketing plan, and I'm very upfront with my sellers in terms of how much it costs me, which is a pretty staggering number, I am okay to pay that price to generate that traffic for your home because that's what you're hiring me to do. Now, should I have to spend the amount of money that I'm spending on marketing to generate leads for buyers that really should be contacting me anyways? Should I have to pay a service provider like Zillow or Trulia to send me leads that are trying to connect with me anyways? Probably not, but I do it because you're hiring me to sell your home, and I'm going to do everything I can to market it to as many people as possible, to have it look professional, and to be available when people want to speak with me. But what's happening is some of these traditional companies that don't do a lot of marketing, don't do a lot of out-of-pocket expense marketing, are relying on their reputation and the agents that work at those companies have a high split at those companies. So sometimes those brokers are taking 50% of the deal as soon as it closes, and then the agent has to pay for marketing and business expenses and admin fees and errors and omissions insurance. And then, oh yeah, by the way, they have to pay taxes on that too. So at the end of the day, what you think they're earning could be as much as 25% of that. So how can they justify spending the amount of money that I spend on a monthly basis if the broker is taking half? And they say, well, we rely on reputation to sell our properties. People know to contact us when they're considering selling and wherever. Really? Do you think someone from Charlotte or Atlanta or anywhere other than Charleston has any idea who you are? No, that's not how people search for real estate. They go online. So that's what's happening, is that Zillow is basically providing a service to the buyer, which is great, but they're charging the agent to get the leads. I pay hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I pay probably $10,000 a year just to Zillow to get leads for my listings. But I do it because it results in sales. I'm not discounting the fact that Zillow is a good service for buyers and sellers, but that's basically what's happening. And it's being taken one step further in that what they want to do now is they want to rank agents on these websites by the number of transactions they do. I think a much better way of doing it is to rank them by their reviews. I do not believe that a number of transactions is synonymous with professionalism, which is what you should be hiring your real estate agent based on, in my opinion, among other things. But I do not believe in ranking real estate agents by number of transactions, because for anyone listening, if you've dealt with again, another air quote, top agent, and they've let you down, or their customer service was not good, or they talked the talk, but they didn't walk the walk, then you know what I'm talking about. So I don't agree in this separation between top agents and new agents based on number of transactions. I would much more prefer it be based on professionalism, reviews, and choosing the right agent for the job that's going to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And that's what's happening in the online world right now. So realize that that's not quite what you guys sign up for when you listen to this program. You want information to help you buy or sell a home. But I do want you to understand that when you list your home with some of these agents, you need to ask what they're doing to market your home in addition to what their company does. It might not be what you think it is. So anyways, if you're considering selling a home, give me a call, 843-345-1273, or reach out to me through my website, listingsincharleston.com. You've been listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll be back next weekend for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning from 8 till 9. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.